how to beat road rage before road rage beats you. That's next. I'm John Cadogan from AutoExpert.com.au, the place where Aussie new car buyers save thousands off their next new cars. Hit me up on the website for that. The way I look at this, if you're going to enter any hazardous environment, it makes complete sense to equip yourself not only with the right tools, but also a plan. This is just as true, in my view, for driving as it is for going door to door in Fallujah or welding some pipes inside an oil refinery. The philosophy, if you want to win, is exactly the same. The tools and the plan are a bit different, hopefully. Unfortunately, though, most people let driving evolve completely organically. They don't bring the tools or make the plan. And then when it all goes sideways, they're outgunned. Here in Australia, the wonderful former convict paradise betwixt the boobies and the beaches, we have an unholy trinity of crap driving. Rampant entitlement, appalling proficiency and naked aggression. So is it any wonder that road rage is rife? Here are the top 8 ways to throw a spanner in the works when you're face to face with a poster boy for poor impulse control out there on the road. Forget about right and wrong. The only thing that matters on the road is personal safety. Traffic is an imperfect environment. People make mistakes. Some behave like outright malicious tools. That's just a given. Your principal job as a driver is to roll with the punches here and keep yourself, everyone, the people in the car with you, other drivers around you, pedestrians, whomever, your mission is to keep everyone safe. You're not there to balance up the ledger and punish the shit drivers, however much that fantasy appeals. Someone cuts you off, you honk at them, they flip you the bird, you tailgate them, they brake test you, you smash into them, they hit a pole, they suffer a brain injury, you get sentenced to 5 years in the big house. Nobody wins. Explain to me who is in the right when this kind of thing happens. Show me the winner. Right and wrong are irrelevant concepts on the road. The thing to avoid is a chain reaction of escalating aggression and the inevitable consequences. There's just something about getting into that big metal exoskeleton, It makes some people think they're entitled to this bit of road or that. It makes some people think they can behave in a manner that would get them punched in the head in the supermarket or fired in the workplace. This is who we are as a species. In a sense, we're all homo, but we're not always sapiens. And I mean that in an entirely non-fag way. Look it up, #Latin. So I'd suggest that the road is a chaotic public space where small stuff goes sideways all the time. Insulation from this crap is the only thing that matters. Just drive like everyone is potentially out to get you. And then it will not be a disappointment when they actually are. Play lots of what-if games in your head. What if the car does not stop out there? What if that pedestrian steps out? Stuff like that. Pro tip too, you are not entitled to drive like a dick either. Sending a text message, some vital Twitter update, noodles for dinner, yum, yes, definitely likely to infuriate other drivers around you. So don't do that. During a firefight, do not wear the shirt that says Target. In 2014, a former banker and definite scumbag, Ian Bush, then 48 years old, so definitely old enough to know better, he started tailgating the vehicle ahead, flashing his lights and blowing his horn, generally driving like a complete prick. The vehicle ahead contained Mum, driving, her 3 school kids on the way home from school, plus her baby. Perhaps Mr. Bush felt that they had impinged his moral entitlement in some way. Perhaps he was, or probably still is, just a self-entitled cock. Like, can't you see how important I am? How dare you hold me up? So he overtakes the vehicle with the family aboard, and then he immediately jams on the brakes for no reason. Both vehicles stop, but the truck behind the family, number 3 in the grim chain of upcoming events, it can't stop in time, and following the crash, one of the kids, a 10-year-old boy, dies from massive head injuries after 5 days in intensive care. Imagine that. I certainly hope it was worth it. Mr. Bush was sentenced to 8.5 years in jail, and thankfully he lost his appeal last year. The young boy who died lost, potentially, 70 years, of course. It doesn't seem fair. In her victim impact statement, the mother said, "There's no prison you can put him in that is worse than the prison he has put our family in." What a living hell. I imagine that's not an exaggeration. So I say, bring back the death penalty. And if you can't find an executioner, I'll do it. If you're one of those people who always plays by the rules, it might surprise you somewhat to learn that society's scumbags use the roads too. Scumbags like Clinton Brimson, 35. Father of 5, driving a 4-wheel drive with a trailer, Mr. Brimson became enraged when a car cut him off. So at the next traffic lights, he jumps out, he yells obscenities at the 59-year-old driver and then assaults him, as you do at the supermarket or in the office, right? At the time, Brimson was 6 months into a suspended sentence, which meant he also had to be resentenced for assaults he'd committed against a former partner and a family member. At least he's consistent. The court heard that he had a history of domestic violence, depression, ADHD, had underlying drug and alcohol issues, and was exposed to domestic violence as a child. To which I'd say, cry me a friggin' river. Like being a drug-fucked retard makes it okay to punch the crap out of someone who makes a mistake in traffic and forces you to hit the brakes. Mum never loved me, Your Honour, and that's why I picked up Liberace's AK and shot up all those people at the beach. It just sounds kind of lame when you think about it like that. Society's a box. You get freedom if you play inside the box. That's just how this works. So never forget that the spastic going off at you in traffic can actually have a PhD in scumbaggery like this Brimson tool and the ones we're about to get to, who make Mr. Brimson look like a friggin' saint. He went inside for 14 months, not nearly long enough in my view. So what do? Confronted by someone you've angered? Do not engage them, not at all. No eye contact, no rude gestures. Do not brake test them. Throw water on the fire, not gasoline. Wind up the windows, lock the doors. Some people worry about locking the doors when driving for fear that it will hinder the rescue attempts after a crash. It doesn't work like that. Most cars automatically unlock the doors when the airbags deploy, and the tempered glass shatters into a billion pieces anyway in almost every serious crash, and that's basically all the glass in the car except the windscreen. Rescuers can just reach in and unlock the doors if necessary. So slow down, move over, and let the scumbag go past you. That's generally what they want. Don't follow them, don't tailgate them, don't flash your lights, don't sound the horn, don't be any kind of vector for escalation. That's enough to put out the fire in most cases. Avoid escalation because A, it goes out of control very fast, and B, the court system takes a very dim view indeed of those who escalate road rage incidents. Last year, 2 scumbag drivers in South Australia were found guilty of causing the death of a 63-year-old pedestrian. Colin Munn, 32, and Damien White, 43, had some sort of long-running dispute going on. So there was some verbal abuse between them in traffic, Munn in one car and White in the other. High-speed road rage ensued, real-life Fast and Furious stuff, only with consequences. 120 in a 60 zone, Damien White killed Stuart Oates while Mr. Oates was crossing the road outside a shopping centre. I'm tipping that wasn't in the script, but I'm also tipping Quentin Tarantino could have written the next chapter in this sad tale. After the crash, Damien White's antagonist, Colin Munn, was laughing and clapping his hands, telling Mr. White, "Sucked in, look at what you've done, you've killed a man." Munn's 8-year-old son is sitting in the back of the car, presumably watching. What a role model. Imagine the enormity of this situation. An innocent man lying dead, killed violently. There are bystanders. It's a shopping centre. Scumbag 2 is laughing and clapping about it like, result, yes. His son is watching. Unbelievable. Ultimately, White goes away for 4 years and 2 months. Munn, the laughing, clapping asshole parent of the year, 3 years and 4 months. Mr. Oates, of course, he went away permanently. Don't escalate. Don't take your issues with you when you drive either. You know, if you get fired or your missus drives off with the kids and says she won't be back, don't take it out on some poor bastard whose only real mistake is sharing the road with you. Whatever you do, if you are confronted by road rage, never get out of the car. Slow down, drive conservatively, windows up, check the locks. The car is a fortress. Do not step out of it. It's a means of escape too. This situation is not going to improve face to face. On the balance of probabilities, all outcomes get substantially worse up close and personal. You get out, you're thinking Marquis of Queensbury. He gets out, he's thinking baseball bat or maybe machete. There's a sudden asymmetry in the exchange. That's exactly how the Tao of violence works. Or you engage in some pushing and shoving. He stumbles and falls into the path of a car. You go inside for manslaughter. He's brain injured and a quadriplegic. None of this is a reasonable consequence of a minor traffic incident that spirals out of control. Never get out of the car. Finally, if you're being followed by some outraged scumbag, if pulling over, attempting to let them past, if the disengagement strategies have not worked, the number one rule is don't get out, check, followed by do not head home. Stay somewhere public. A petrol station is ideal because A, they're everywhere, and B, they have kick-ass CCTV. Park right up there near the console operator, call the cops, keep the car in drive with your foot on the brake. Drive away conservatively if your antagonist gets out with a weapon, and it'll all be recorded for posterity. Hopefully it won't come to that. Finally, the best way to prepare for emergencies is before you get in one. And that's how pilots and soldiers do it. Think about what you're going to do now and then carry the blueprint with you when you drive, just in case. It's all very Baden-Powell. And now, this. I threw my own gasoline on the fire recently when I said on this occasionally controversial program that hydrocarbons were the best thing that had ever happened to humanity. Gingans 13 took the bait, hook, line and sinker. Yes. It's the best thing that could have happened to humanity. A huge increase in population supported entirely by machines and fertilizers powered by oil? Surely when the oil runs out and the extra billions are starving, it'll obviously be the worst. Very short-sighted, this humanity you talk about. Ah, grasshopper. What have hydrocarbons ever done for us? Quite. Well, they've given us access to energy that's basically limitless and so cheap that in the context of a return on investment, it's free. This has tripled your lifespan, eliminated most of the diseases that typically killed us early, given us advanced medical care, freed us all from a lifetime of back-breaking hard labour in the fields just to feed ourselves. It's revolutionised agriculture, given us more computing power than an Apollo moonshot, and we hold it in our pockets, and it's handed us all more mobility than a Roman emperor. But aside from that, not much. And yet, despite the evidence in plain sight, some of us sit in the basement with our withered testes in one hand and a keyboard in the other, bitching and moaning about how terrible the modern world is. And I'm looking at you, Gingas 13. I'm John Cadogan. The facts here, so inconvenient. Thanks for watching.